We're excited to have two members of the Scorpions in the Nights with Alice Cooper studios. Yay! Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe one of us, Mikkey, is the newest member of the Scorpions. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it ain't me. Must be you. No. Yes, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm very fresh out. About a year and a half, I've been hanging with these lunatics.
So obviously the Scorpions began in 1965, I believe, before all of us were born somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
But tell me, when did you first know them? Were you a fan? When did you first meet the Scorpions?
Yes, of course. I mean, we ran into each other over the years. When I played with Motorhead, we touring, and they were touring all the time. So we knew each other.
Yes.
For years. And but the first time I actually started listening to Scorpions, that was about end of 70s. Tokyo Tapes, I think, was when I was very much into live records in the 70s, and that was one of the great ones. So, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Of course, live records, sometimes we find out afterwards, aren't always live, or audiences are added, or,
Well, in the
tons of
70s, it was harder to do that. So they're a little bit more real than
right.
maybe what's being recorded and released today.
So how do you go about learning a Scorpions catalog? When Mikkey joins the band, tell us, what do you say to him? Learn every album, here's a set list. How do you get him up to speed?
I mean, we talked on the phone, Mikkey and I, before he came over to Germany. We were touring like 2 years ago, or 1.5 years ago, and I gave him the set list, and we were meeting secretly because he was on standby first. So, the former drummer wasn't supposed to know, because, you never know how he would take it. And then we were rehearsing in the afternoon, being on tour. It was like a little bit like the Secret Service was around Mikkey, because he was like brought with a driver to a different hotel and all that stuff.
That was disguised.
The cruise,
mustache
the
and
cruise
wig?
set up in the afternoon. We were rehearsing, and we went through song by song, basically.
Yeah.
There are some songs, like almost everybody in the rock scene knows, like Rock You Like a Hurricane, or No One Like You don't really have to explain much. But some of the newer stuff has sophisticated arrangements, and those we went through in the afternoon and repeated that, like how you learn a song,
in a room like this, basically. But they called me. It was a Thursday. Can you come to Luxembourg on tomorrow, on Friday? Because on Saturday is the first show.
I mean, that's 24 hours notice.
Yeah,
don't complain.
Much. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I go, yeah, this sounds all right. They gave me a hell of a lot of time here to figure this out. I actually got the DVD that you recorded here in New Jersey,
the Brooklyn Arena.
Oh, Brooklyn Arena.
Yeah.
Barclays.
Barclays, it's called.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the arrangement. And I called Matthias back. I was up all night going through this. And, of course, the songs, I know the songs, but so many different arrangements of the music and medleys and so on. And they've been going with this for a long time. So it's all worked in. So I called Matthias, said, look, I don't know if I can do this in such a short time. But he said, come on down at least. And then we rehearsed, as he said, in a room like this, basically, for a couple hours during the afternoon. And then I was pounding this DVD at the hotel rooms, and James was playing along, and he managed to finish that German leg. He needed some time off, and then I was standing by, basically, and then one thing led to the other, and
we started in the States.
And then I started at Charlotte
Rebellion,
Carolina,
the festival last year. Yeah.
So Return to Forever was the most recent album. At what point were you joined after that album was completed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where do we stand on a new Scorpions album?
A new Scorpions album, we couldn't record anything before next year, 2018, because this tour, which we start day after tomorrow in Reading, Pennsylvania, and play the Garden here on Saturday, that's the beginning of this American leg. But as soon as we are done, middle of October in Florida, we will have to go to Russia, Eastern Europe, play a big Scandinavian tour. Lots of Swedish dates, and so we are on the road until December 10th. And that means, before Christmas, nobody's going to do anything in the studio. So we take a break, and then we have to write songs.
Are
we have
you
a few.
sure, Matthias? December 10th to the 24th, we managed to write a record.
Okay, I'll give you 24 hours notice.
Yeah, exactly. We have 12-second notice.
So, we will write a few
Over
songs.
lunch.
The tour is the best inspiration for songs anyway, especially with the Scorpions. We are really playing, I think we played 82 countries on this planet. And so, we are everywhere in all kinds of, we played in Asia last year extensively, Australia. Now we are back in the States. We go up to Canada. We played all over Europe already this summer. And so, we meet so many different people, and it's always like a great inspiration for new songs. And so I don't think we have a problem writing good material for next year.
So I just wanted to ask you, Mikkey, obviously I've seen you in many of your bands with Doc, and I think we had Jeff Pilson sitting right where you are, someone you probably know.
Pilson,
But of course, Lemmy and Motorhead, what a great guy, what an amazing legacy.
Yes.
I know it's hard to recover from something like that. What did you do in the months after Lemmy's passing? I mean, were you inundated with people sending their condolences?
It went crazy. I mean, I always thought that when Lemmy one day, kicked the bucket, it will be, something out of the ordinary. But I could never, ever, ever imagine. I mean, this was bigger than Elvis, almost, and unfortunately, if you remember, it was so many people leaving us within 3 months, great musicians and artists around the world. It was almost scary. It was one new every week, and but Lemmy seemed to be on top of every one of these guys, and a lot of them are, if you will call them bigger or small, I don't know, but legendary people. But yeah, what do you do, But I think back about it. I mean, Lemmy had a great life, 70 years. He told me when he was turning 50, if I fall down tomorrow, I had a great, perfect life, and he got 20 of his best years after that. So I keep saying it. I rather celebrate his life than mourn his death, and but continue playing, and especially have a chance to come into yet another super legendary band and be a part of that, and keep touring is the best thing I can do. I actually got an email from Filthy Animal's sister, because he passed before Lemmy, and there's not a lot of motorizers left, but she wrote me a very nice email saying that she was so proud that I was continuing playing, and she saw me being with Scorpions, and we do a Motorhead tribute, to honor Lem, and because Motorhead Scorpions, we go hand in hand. He used to say, oh, those guys, they're been around even longer than me, with Motorhead, 52 years, you don't kick around so. No, it's great. It's great respect. I'm very thankful, and of course I think about it all the time. But I'm putting my energy into Scorpions, and my drumming is a tribute to Lemmy, of course. Whatever I do the rest of my life, he was a great man to know and to hang out and be a part of. And I'm so proud of what we created and did. But now it's Scorpions, and we go full steam ahead on that.
So tell me, I haven't seen this, or I haven't seen you guys in several years. Tell me about this tribute. Who sings on it? What songs do you do? Is it a medley? And what made you? Obviously, you have him in the band, but would you have done it even if you had a different drummer?
Probably not. No, we do it because of the connection through Mikkey, through Lemmy, whom we knew well, and we just play one song. You know, the voices are too different between like Klaus is like tenor type of voice and Lemmy's.
That sounded good. I
Yeah,
think you
no.
should do that.
I could do it probably. Yeah, we play Overkill, which is a nice, energetic song, and actually we do it our way, of course. But it sounds pretty good, and
Well,
people love it.
It's because Klaus was a little concerned. I mean, funny is, we talked about it. I actually suggested, it was just like a temporary thing, I would say, when we were going to South America. I said, you know, they're so hysterical down there, especially with Motorhead. And I said, maybe we should do a tribute. Just one song, blow off a Motorhead song. They would fall backwards. And Klaus came up. I was thinking about, you know, maybe 10 different songs. But Klaus came and said, I think I found a song that would work out pretty good. And he said Overkill. And I fell backwards because I thought that'd be the last one he would suggest. But then after, he was a little concerned over, how does it sound and do we do it right? And I said, we're not supposed to sound like Motorhead. We're doing a Scorpion version of this. But Lemmy comes up with really nice pictures. It's very touching, actually, and moving. And it's just a tribute from Scorpion. They were as good friends to Lemmy as I was, you know, and so I think it's a good thing, and people seem to appreciate it.
So one thing I've always wondered about the Scorpions, as far as I can tell, in the 90s when a lot of metal bands, you know, weren't doing as well or were playing smaller clubs, I think you guys have always stayed at arena, stadium, big venue. How do you account for just the steady, if not increasing popularity?
The 90s were not easy on any of those 80s rock bands. We had to suffer as well. We were lucky that we had with our album Crazy World in the early 90s, we had like a smash hit like Wind of Change, and the whole album was very successful with other songs like Tease Me, Please Me, or Send Me an Angel. And we sold like millions and millions of that album, and the tour was very successful. And the follow-up was also very successful, Face the Heat in 93, 94. But the middle of the 90s, and especially the second half, where, you know, all of a sudden, everybody around you, from the record company to like the producers, they were going, you know, that old-fashioned, do something else, you know, just cut your hair and play something modern. You know, we didn't like to do that, but still, as a musician, you're so sensitive, you pick up some of that vibe, and you feel uncomfortable in your own role, and that you never thought about it being a role. You thought about that we always did what we liked, but towards the end of the 90s, it was somehow getting to us. So we released an album we're not really proud of. It's like it's called Eye to Eye, and the fans told us, that's not you, Scorpions. But I'm saying now, looking back, this is probably has been the best mistake we ever made, because we are following somebody else's advice, and we realized this wasn't us. And then we quickly went back to our own path and said, no, we don't listen to anybody anymore. And which we had never done in the beginning. We did what we liked, and so we came back with stuff in the early 2000s like Unbreakable, and since then it really went up steep.
I mean, you look at a band like Metallica, who maybe took a turn with their Black Album and then Load after that, and apparently that worked for them, and they carried on in a slightly different direction.
Yes.
But I mean, you guys, I guess, live and learn. Did you ever play songs from that album live?
We did on that following tour, of course, but it was never the same. It just we didn't feel comfortable, and we could sense there's something missing. But it was the time. It was like everybody seemed to be influenced. It's when maybe it was time for a change. I remember that in the late 80s, the productions were getting like so big. There were the hair bands and the clothing and everything. It was over the top, so that it took away a bit from the music. Even though the 80s have like some of the greatest songs ever written in history of rock music, at least. And but it was probably time for a change. But the ones that could like live through this and had the endurance power, like the Scorpions, we survived, and we are here now like bigger than ever.
Did you ever meet any of those bands, many of them still around today, the grunge bands, like, you know, the members of Alice in Chains or Pearl Jam or Nirvana? Did any of them come out and say, we're huge Scorpions fans?
Absolutely. That's the funniest part. Even in the 90s we heard that. You know, we were influenced by you guys. Okay, which is funny. I mean, nobody has anything against each other. You know, they did their thing, we did our thing, and now where are they? But they're still great musicians, and they came up with something new, and it was obviously time for something new. But, you know, we came back, and we are like the rock in the ocean, and waves are coming and going.
All right. Well, thank you very much to the Scorpions for coming into the studio today.
Ask Alice is brought to you in part by Napa Auto Parts. Stop by your local Napa Auto Parts store and conquer the job with Napa Know-How.